I initially got my license at the first company that I was at. So this is the beginning of our list. I will say one of my favorite things about trucking, guys, and you won't really get this online, I don't think. And so interestingly enough, that was my favorite, probably out of all the companies I've been to and the work that I've done. That became my favorite. I would still be there to this day had they not changed the pay. All right. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm super stoked for today's video for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, December was my 4-year anniversary with my CDL. So this video will be going over how I got my CDL, some of the interesting factors that went along with that, how you can get your CDL, and all the companies that I've been at in those 4 years. Now, the number is quite high, but I gained a lot of experience. I'm super proud of everything that I've learned. I'm grateful for it. And every job that I've left, I left on good terms, 2-week notice, and everybody was pretty much, hey, you always got a job here if you want to come back. And in those 4 years, the longest I've been at a company is my current company, just over a year and a half. And the shortest time I was at a company, guys, was 1 month. I went regional for 4 weeks, and about halfway in, man, my wife and I were kind of like, hey, we gotta look for something else. It was a rough time away from home, but that is number one. Number two, guys, somewhere in here before, after this, I am working on my channel intro, so that should be there. I still got some tweaks that I want to make, but I hope you enjoy that. Put a decent amount of time into that, and I'm still learning how to do some things. There's a small effect that I want to have in there. I know I can play it in my mind, but I just don't know how to create it on the computer. I tried to have AI do it for me, and the AI is not as intelligent as we think sometimes. I tried it and had a friend try it as well, and we couldn't get it to do what we wanted it to do. So I don't know if I got to get on to Fiverr and hire somebody, an animator or something, but the intro, it's a work in progress. Let's say that. And finally, third, last but not least, is we are close to 200 subscribers, guys. So that's all thanks to you guys. I don't have 200 friends and family, so those of you that have subscribed to the channel for whatever reason, whatever videos, the diving, trucking, finance, I really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much, guys. And without further ado, let's get into today's video. Also, guys, with this video, I am going to try to put in different photos or shots that I had at different companies, their trucks or the road, wherever I was at delivering. And I might have some of my Army training photos and videos in between here as well. So if you're wondering kind of what's playing in the background, hopefully you see something cool in there. All right, so first and foremost, let's talk about how you can get your CDL, your commercial's driver's license. And there's 2 major ways that you can get it, guys. This isn't a comprehensive list. There's maybe other extraordinary ways that you could get it. And so you maybe leave that down in the comments. But the 2 major ways are you can go to a school and get your license through an accredited school. And then you can go to any company and work for them. The other way is you get it at a company. They pay you. Typically, they pay you while you're training. They train you all of their equipment, or they hire a third party, but you use their equipment, their trainers, et cetera, et cetera. And then a lot of times you will sign a contract stating, hey, I'm going to work at this company for at least a year. Right, that's so that they can get their value, their money's worth for training you. Regulations have been changing a lot in the past decade, so I don't work for the DOT. This isn't gospel truth. You may have to check your state exactly on the different rules and what have you, especially with the schools. Right, they've been cracking down a lot on kind of schools and testers and where you can test things like that. So you'll have to either look into the school, look into their reviews, maybe contact your local DMV for some real solid, they'll give you information on, schools in your area. Same with a company, any kind of company that you're going to go to, talk to your DMV. They can give you exactly what you need from a company or a school. All right, guys, so I had to add this in afterwards in the editing process. The typical average school cost is roughly 3 to 10,000 depending on where you go. I think the average is about 5,000, but I think that range is kind of includes everything. Schooling is typically 160 hours. And so if you're doing, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, that is that 4 weeks or 1 month. That's typically CDL school, or like I said, when I was at McLean, whether you do it at a school or a company, that's typically the average. The payback contracts are usually a little bit less than the school. So for example, at McLean and ABF both, I had to sign the 1-year contract that I would be at the company. And if you leave prior to that, then the repayment amount for both McLean and ABF was roughly $3,000. And then it's kind of gets prorated as you stay longer, like 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, etc. And that won't be the same at every single company, but that's kind of typically roughly, I think, the going rate, 3 to 5,000. So had to add that in there. Thanks. 2 other ways that I've heard about or learned about in my 4 years here is they're changing some of the rules on this too. But agriculture, farmers used to be able to hire a guy, put him in his truck, and if he was running agriculture, he didn't need a license. He didn't need a CDL. So I think regulations are changing in that regard. There's been a lot of accidents from guys hauling grain or what have you and not having a license. So I think they are kind of cracking down on that too as well. And then when I was in the Army National Guard, or if you're in the service, the DMV will typically, you can get a note or something from your commander, take that to the DMV, and that can kind of count as, accredited training. And all you got to do is go and take the test. Now, don't quote me on this. A recruiter's probably going to blow smoke. You have to talk to somebody at your unit, talk to the DMV. You may be able to, pass the whole driver's test, pass the written test with your commander's signature. You may not be able to. I don't know all the details, but when I was in the service, that was something that they did promote, that, your driving hours in the service can cross over to sort of, again, accredited training. And then as far as testing goes, you'll have to look into the details on that. But those are the major ways, guys. Back in the day, 10 to 50 years ago, guys were, you would get hired on at a warehouse, maybe on a forklift, say Pepsi or Coke or something. And then you would just jump into a truck and they would kind of, and the company would train you, and you kind of got, a lot of guys got their licenses that way. Before all the regulations came down, guys would typically just get it at the company that they worked at, whether it's construction or, food or beer delivery. Again, if you're in maybe you started at a warehouse, Home Depot, Lowe's, you name it, construction, oil rigs. Back in the day, guys would kind of just get their license, through the company they worked at, right? They just throw them in a truck and train them, and that was kind of how it went, I think. But now there's a lot more regulations through the government and through the DMV. So I initially got my license at the first company that I was at. So this is the beginning of our list, is McLean in Northfield, Minnesota. McLean is a refrigerated kind of food delivery, kind of like PFG or Cisco or UNFI, stuff like that. US Foods, you name it. That McLean is kind of in that category. At McLean, I didn't have any endorsements, and they trained us on automatic trucks. There was 4 guys to a class, 2 instructors. It was a 4-week class. McLean paid us $20 an hour. We used all their equipment. The 2 instructors were from a third-party company. So as I mentioned before, so we did a month. That month of training, tested, got our license, and then at McLean we did 1 month of solo driving, 1 month of teams driving, and then you would go out onto the board by yourself. Now, McLean, I was only there for about 3 months, and those first 2 months were training. You're unloading the whole semi on a dolly. 80% of their stuff went to holiday gas stations, so everything from chips to bottled water to car oil, and pretty much everything that you can get at the holiday gas station, minus the Pepsi, Coke, whatever they bring in, the beer or beverage guys. That was McLean. The warehouse was about an hour from where I live. They pushed your 70 hours a week, 14-hour days. And so with me, with my drive time, 16-hour days, it was just super long hours. The pay at McLean was really good. So if you're willing to put in the work, McLean is a good company to work at. The pay is very good, but you're working hard and you're working long hours for it. From McLean, I went to Schneider. Once I had 3 months of experience, I could go to Schneider. At Schneider, I started on a flatbed account for Master Halco. They are one of the biggest fencing distributors in the U.S. I think they're a Japanese-owned company. And Schneider orientation was done in Green Bay, Wisconsin for about a week. And then I had like a day or two of flatbed training. So I had no experience on flatbed. I was super nervous because you have to do your own load securement. And for me, again, I had zero experience, super green. And I was just really nervous about something falling off or what have you. The two drivers that were on that account with me, senior guys, very knowledgeable. They gave me a bunch of tips and tricks. So eventually, as I got to know all the customers that we went to, the product was all the same. So again, it was a dedicated account for Master Halco. The fencing, the bars, bundles of tubes, and then like rolled up fence and galvanized chain link fence. They did custom like fence doors, the swinging doors, so that kind of stuff. And so I got used to securing those kinds of loads. Again, all of our customers where they were at. And so interestingly enough, that was my favorite, probably out of all the companies I've been to and the work that I've done, that became my favorite. I would still be there to this day had they not changed the pay. We were on a guaranteed pay, like a daily pay scale, which equaled out to a weekly of 13 something, 1400, somewhere right around there. And they changed company-wide, nationwide, to an hourly schedule, an hourly pay rate, and it wasn't supposed to affect drivers. I stayed on for a month after that, and every week our gross pay went from about 1,400 to about 1,000 a month. And told my driver leader, and again, they said it wasn't supposed to affect drivers. The pay was supposed to stay the same, and it didn't. So that was a huge pay cut for us. I switched over to their Toro account, which is just dry van, driving for Toro. Warehouse was right in the same town that I live in, so it was a little bit better, but the hourly pay was horrible, guys. And the Toro account at that time, 2022-ish, it was slow in the winter. They hardly didn't have full-time hours for me. So I think I was there. So I did the flatbed for 9 months. I did the Toro for a couple of months. And then a guy that I got my license with at McLean, so a guy that was in the graduating class with me, we stayed in contact, and he told me about this account in St. Cloud, Minnesota, for Hirschbach. Hirschbach is another refrigerated company. Super cool logos. If you see them on the truck, I'll put one up on the screen, some photos or whatever. If you've ever seen the YouTuber Wild Beard Trucking, he's got a beard. He drives for Hirschbach. They're out of Dubuque, Iowa. So yeah, they do refrigerated stuff. It was a regional account, but we were out of one warehouse in St. Cloud, Minnesota, and we would always come back to that warehouse. That was a little over an hour away from my house. And at the time when I got hired onto that account, they said that I could bring the truck home with me. They had a very high guaranteed weekly pay on that account. AWG, Associated Wholesale Goods, there was a brand new warehouse at that time. So they were kind of just ramping up production. Hirschbach had a bunch of drivers there. They probably didn't need half of them. So we were only running probably two to three loads a week. And so as long as you were available to work, they paid you the monthly minimum. So we were making bank, running two to 3 days a week for quite a few months. Once things started ramping up, they put the kibosh on taking the truck home. And so then I was running my Mustang, over an hour and 20 minutes one way every day. So that wasn't working out. So I was there for about 6 months. After that, I went to my fifth company, which was ABF. Now, I won't get into too much detail. I have actually a ABF review video on my channel, so you can check that out after this if you'd like. But this is where the interesting part of my license comes into play. ABF is an LTL company, meaning less than truckload. So they have pup trailers. They're nationwide. They haul pretty much anything and everything. Anything that they can shove into a trailer, they do. They load them from the floor to the ceiling on bars. A lot of stuff that should probably be on a flatbed gets shoved into these trailers. They are a union company, one of the last few trucking companies in the country that are all their drivers are union. And so with that, the requirement was you have to be able to drive a manual, and you needed all your endorsements. So firstly, when I got to ABF, I went through a refresher course with them, basically to learn how to drive a manual and then study for all of the endorsement tests, so I had to retake the tests at the DMV in a manual truck. So that was pretty cool. And then all the endorsement tests, guys, you can do that as soon as you get your license. That all those endorsements are doubles, triples, tanker, and hazmat. That's all just, you can study for those online. You can go to the DMV, you take a test on the computer, and that's it. There's no driving portion or anything with any of those. And I got a video on my channel as well for where to study, how to get a perfect score on all the tests. They're relatively easy. The hazmat one gets into a lot of hazardous materials, and so a lot of that is learning the different types of materials that you'll be carrying, kind of what their effects are, the dangers that are associated with them, cleanup processes. So it's a little bit more in depth, the hazmat one. The other ones, you can kind of pass with common sense, and they go hand in hand with, your trucking, your air brakes and stuff like that. So doubles and triples, right, is just talking about having 2 or 3 trailers. So the air brakes and all that stuff is going to be the same, and that's what the tests go over. So ABF, I was there for a little over a year. And the reason why I left ABF was because I wasn't doing a whole lot of driving. In my video, I talked about I was on a forklift in the warehouse for a majority of the time. And I am no good on a forklift. I do not enjoy being on a forklift. In the winter in Minnesota, man, they do not have a heated dock. It's wide open dock. If it's -20 outside, it's -20. It could be -30 on that dock. I mean, it's a big cement slab up in the air. All the doors are open. It sucks. They bid every 6 months, the union bids. And I went through 2 bid cycles, couldn't get on the road. And so I was kind of miserable on the dock and on a forklift. I just wasn't very good, guys. I think some people are just born to ride on those forklifts. So from there, that is when I went to the company that I was only at for 1 month. They were called Copeland Trucking out of Minneapolis. It was a mom and pop company, so you may have never heard of them or seen them. They did OTR and regional, and they did food stuff, but mostly dry van. So it wasn't like refrigerated goods. It was more like I hauled a bunch of like mustard seed and pepper stuff, seasonings, stuff like that in big bags, coffee, stuff like that. I got a video on my channel too about that, talking about regional driving, some of the ins and outs of that, some of the things that we struggled with, just being away from home, right? You leave out in your truck Monday morning, you're out on the road in the Midwest or whatever region you're in, or if you're over the road, and then I came back on Friday evening. So that's what regional is typically. Over the road, you may be out for a couple weeks, couple months, but regional is typically Monday to Friday. You get, your 34-hour reset on the weekend. So they were pretty good company for being a mom and pop. I thought my experience there was pretty good. I will say one of my favorite things about trucking, guys, and you won't really get this online, I don't think, and that's help from other drivers. When I was there at Copeland doing regional, Minnesota, Iowa, the Dakotas, Michigan, the Upper Peninsula, Illinois, these were the places that I went to, Wisconsin, so just the Midwest mostly. And so all of our shippers and receivers I had never been to. When I was at orientation, my dispatcher, my manager, he gave me the phone number to one of their veteran drivers, Harlan. Shout out to Harlan, man. This guy, I would call him and he would tell me exactly where to go, exactly where to park, what times they're open. I mean, you name it. Every single shipper receiver that I went to, he knew exactly where I was going, what streets I'm taking. And, you know, for any of you newer guys or guys that have been out, you know, going to new places, man, it can be nerve-wracking. And I did all my Google Maps, you know, bird's eye view. You know, I had the not the Rand McNally, but the other. I had the trucker GPS, the Garmin. I had a Garmin trucker GPS from a truck stop. So I used all that, you know, check the bird's eye view. Where am I entering? Where am I exiting? You know, how are trucks maneuvering around the yard, stuff like that. But he would, you know, I would get to a place at 6 p.m. and it would be, you know, some mom and pop, again, like Mustard Seed, you know, out of Chicago, some suburb of Chicago. And he told me, hey, park in door 4 and they'll open up at 6 a.m. or whatever. And so I do that. So I'd be the first one there. I'm there that night, park in door 4, go to sleep, wake up in the morning, they load me. Well, then when I leave, man, there's 13 trucks out on the street waiting in line, you know, and it's that kind of stuff. You know, and if you guys are out on the road, man, you know what that is. And so as a new driver, I would have never known, you know, what to do. So that was super cool. One of my favorite experiences and truly grateful for. And I've had that at other companies too. I think there's this kind of like reputation of old drivers and new drivers, and they hate each other, and, you know, super truckers and whatnot. But every time I've asked a driver, for the most part, man, they've all been super helpful. Again, when I was at Schneider, man, those 2 trainers, they showed me a ton of different, you know, tips and tricks on, you know, with the straps, different ways to, you know, roll them up quicker or what have you, you know. And so when I was doing regional, man, that was super cool. Harlan at Copeland. I don't think he's there anymore, but if you got one of those guys, man, thank him, use him, and learn from him. It's super cool. So from Copeland, I went to Breakthrough Beverage, and that is where I was at before my current company. So they deliver beer, wine, and spirits. I have another review video for them on my channel, Breakthrough Beverage. And the interesting thing about Breakthrough Beverage was they're one of the biggest beer distributors here in the Twin Cities out of all the competition. The booze they send out on box trucks, but all the beer is in a it's in a tractor trailer. So downtown Minneapolis, downtown St. Paul, you know, the smallest trailer, you're running with a pup trailer, but still you're in a tractor trailer. I went to, you know, downtown Nicollet Mall where the box trucks, you know, they can back in their underground garage. Well, the semi tractor trailer, I couldn't do that. It was too tall. 12.6 or whatever was their garage door, 12.1, and we're 13.6, so I had to park on the street and 2-wheel everything down, you know, on the dolly. Kegs, cases, you know. But that was super heavy work. Stayed big time in shape. Hurt my back a little bit sometimes. You know, you got to be careful with the beer and in the kegs, and a lot of stairs. Breakthrough Beverage, I think they're nationwide too. So you could check them out. Again, I got a video on my channel, so I won't go into too much depth with them. I was at Breakthrough for about 9 months. Their warehouse was about an hour away from our house, so that was kind of a big thing, was the drive. And then when I did leave there, I wasn't quite, you know, I didn't need to leave. They were union as well, so really good pay and benefits. But I was seeing some of our competitors, you know, while I was out delivering, and so I talked to them. Well, one of them is right in my town here, and that's the company that I'm currently with, Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits. So they only do wine and spirits, which is a little bit easier than beer. There's no kegs. Beer, you're merchandising all your stuff. So you're putting away all the beer in the coolers on the floor. With the booze, you're not doing any of that. Wine and spirits, you're unloading it on a 2-wheeler down the ramp into the store, and you line it up somewhere, line it up in an aisle. And then they go through it. So, and I'm not even doing that at Southern right now. I'm on the overnight line haul. So I'm just driving tractor trailer from our warehouse to Fargo, North Dakota and back 4 nights a week. Southern Glazers is union. I've been there for about 1.5 years. Last year I did get on a day route for 6 months. I got a couple shorts on my channel about that. Just humping cases, 500 cases a day, staying in big shape. I think I had my annual at the VA and I lost 13 pounds in about 2 months coming back to line haul. So big deal. Got to get back into the pool or something, get to swimming after work. Yeah, that's my 4 years, guys. So 7 companies I've been to. Again, you probably call that a job hopper in today's in today's economy, but our economy's kind of whack, man. I don't know, people aren't staying at companies like they used to, like our grandparents, they were one company for your whole life. And companies aren't incentivizing that either. There's sign-on bonuses. Every single one of these companies that I went to at some point in time had a sign-on bonus. Now, I didn't get any of those. I got a sign-on bonus at Southern, the company that I'm currently with. But all the rest, I didn't get a sign-on bonus, especially since COVID. So the past 5 years, a lot of companies have had substantial sign-on bonuses. And a guy could have, 1 year to the next, kind of boom, getting some of those. I think the average sign-on bonus was 10 grand. When I got on at McLean, they were hiring guys that had their CDL $15,000 sign-on bonuses. But I started with them. I didn't have my license, so I went through their driver training program. In fact, at my orientation, there was a 19-year-old kid from Texas from the oil fields, got that $15,000 sign-on bonus because he had a CDL. I think he had it for 7 months, something like that. Yeah, if you guys have any questions about getting your license, any questions about these companies in particular, again, check out my channel if you're interested in ABF, Breakthrough Beverage. I got reviews on my channel on those. If you're looking into regional driving, I do have that regional video when I was at Copeland. That wasn't really a review of Copeland, but it was kind of out on the road. What do I want in my truck? Things like that. I have never done over the road, guys, OTR, so I couldn't really speak on that. Try to answer any your questions to the best of my ability. Just from what I've heard, being out on the road, stopping at truck stops. When I was regional, I was sleeping in my truck, showering at the truck stops, you name it. That was the video, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. And again, if you have any questions or anything, leave them down in the comments. Let me know how you got your license, when you got your license, where you got your license. If you are going to continue in trucking, I don't know what the future holds for me. I did accounting for almost a decade before I got my CDL. As I get older, this line haul, overnight driving, it's not for the faint of heart, man. It feels like a zombie, this schedule that I'm on. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. And as always, guys, God bless. Yeah, all right. Yeah, do I put in the AI robot now? Please subscribe. Please subscribe. Please subscribe. Check out the video. Check out the video. Check out the video.